I'm Sarah, 29, an ad exec in New York City, standing in my in-laws' kitchen, feverish and shaking, carving a roast while they laugh and snap perfect family photos, without me. For years, I poured my soul into their Christmas feasts, only to be erased, a ghost in their holiday glow. But last December, something snapped. I walked out, leaving a half-cooked turkey and a stunned family, and vanished to a Maine cabin, sending the Thompsons into pure panic. This is my story, a raw, cinematic revenge story of breaking free from their crushing expectations and finding my worth. Where are you watching from, and when? Drop it in the comments and subscribe to catch how I turn their chaos into my triumph. Stick around, you won't believe how this unfolds. Revenge stories, your family boundaries, just self-worth. Hey, I'm Sarah, 29, clawing my way through the advertising world in New York City. Picture me in a cramped midtown office, hunched over my laptop, pitching campaigns to clients who think they know better than me. I moved here chasing a dream job at a glossy ad agency, where the lights are bright and the deadlines are brutal. But nobody warned me that marrying into the Thompson family would mean signing up for a second job. One that doesn't pay, doesn't thank, and sure as hell doesn't respect me. For 3 years, I've been the unspoken chef, decorator, and maid for their annual Christmas extravaganza. And let me tell you, it sucked the life out of me. I'm not in their story, not in their memories, not even in their damn photos. I'm just the ghost in the kitchen, sweating over a turkey while they clink glasses and laugh. The Thompsons are something else. My husband, Mike, is a gem, tall, kind, with a smile that still makes my knees weak. But his family? Holy shit, they're a piece of work. His mom, Karen, is the queen of expectations, demanding a Martha Stewart-level spread every Christmas. Perfectly roasted beef, golden mashed potatoes, pies that look like they belong in a magazine. She's the type who smiles sweetly while dropping bombs like, "Sarah, you'll handle everything, right? You're so good at it." His dad, Bill, is a gruff retiree who parks himself at the table, grumbling about the weather or politics, barely acknowledging the food unless it's to ask for seconds. Then there's Jessica, Mike's older sister, with her smug husband, Ryan, who show up with nothing but complaints. "The gravy's too thick," Ryan will mutter, as if I spent hours whisking it for fun. And don't get me started on the cousins, 5 of them, treating the house like a 5-star hotel, leaving plates and glasses everywhere for me to clean up. I can still see last Christmas in my mind, clear as a movie reel. Their Long Island house was decked out like a holiday catalog. Twinkling lights draped over the porch, a towering tree in the living room, and the smell of pine mixing with the chaos of my cooking. I'd been up since 4 a.m., my hands raw from peeling potatoes, my back aching from hauling groceries I paid for out of my own pocket. The kitchen was a war zone, pots simmering, oven beeping, my hair plastered to my forehead with sweat. Meanwhile, in the dining room, the Thompsons were living their hallmark moment. I could hear their laughter, the clink of wine glasses, Karen's voice calling for everyone to gather for a photo. I peeked through the doorway, hoping someone would notice me, maybe wave me over. But no. They posed, arms around each other, smiling for Jessica's Instagram, while I stirred cranberry sauce that was starting to burn because I was too damn tired to focus. That's when it hit me, like a punch to the gut. I wasn't in a single one of their photos. Not last Christmas, not the one before, not even the first one when I thought I was winning their hearts. 3 years of pouring my soul into these feasts, and I'm nowhere to be found in their memories. I'm the one who spent weeks planning menus, blowing my paycheck on organic butter and grass-fed beef, missing deadlines at work to make sure the table looked perfect. I'm the one who stayed up until 3 a.m. baking pies, only to wake up at dawn to start again. But in their story, I'm just the help, the invisible hands that make their holiday magical. I stood there, spatula in hand, the kitchen heat suffocating me, and felt my chest tighten. Was this what I'd become? a servant in my own life, erased from the moments I worked so hard to create. Looking back, I can see how I let it happen. I wanted to belong, you know? I married Mike because I loved him, but his family was this tight-knit American clan, all blonde hair and loud laughter, and I felt like an outsider from day one. Cooking was my way in, or so I thought. I grew up in a family where food was everything, where a good meal could mend arguments or spark joy. So when I offered to cook that first Christmas, I thought I was building a bridge. I didn't know I was building a cage. Every year the expectations grew, like vines wrapping tighter around me. Karen's casual requests turned into demands. "Sarah, the cousins loved your stuffing last year. You'll make it again, right?" Jessica would chime in with last-minute changes. "Can you do something low-carb this time? Ryan's on a diet." And Mike, bless him, would try to help. But his help was chopping one onion before disappearing to watch football with Bill. The worst part? I bought into it. I told myself I was doing it for love, for family, for the warm fuzzies of seeing everyone happy. But deep down, I was desperate for their approval, for a place in their perfect little world. I'd stand in that kitchen, the smell of rosemary and garlic filling the air, and feel a fleeting rush of pride when they complimented the food. But the pride always faded, replaced by exhaustion and a nagging question: why am I never enough? Why am I always on the outside, looking in? I'd catch glimpses of their joy, Karen laughing at Jessica's story, Bill patting Mike's back, the cousins snapping selfies, and it felt like I was watching a movie I wasn't cast in. I was the crew, not the star. Now, sitting here telling you this, I can still feel the weight of that realization. It's like I was drowning in plain sight, and nobody noticed. The twinkling Christmas lights, the clatter of plates, the hum of their voices. It was all so beautiful, so perfect. But it wasn't mine. I was just the machine that made it happen, and they didn't even see me breaking. I don't know if I was angrier at them or at myself for letting it go on so long. But in that moment, stirring that damn cranberry sauce, I knew something had to give. I just didn't know yet how far I'd have to go to take back my life. I can still taste the bitter sting of that first Christmas with the Thompsons, the one that hooked me in and set the stage for my downfall. It was 3 years ago, and I was this starry-eyed 26-year-old, newly married to Mike, desperate to prove I could fit into his all-American family. I'd grown up in a small Ohio town, where my mom's kitchen was the heart of every celebration. Her apple pies and pot roast were the glue that held us together. So when I offered to cook for my first Thompson Christmas, I thought I was bringing a piece of that love to their Long Island home. Big fucking mistake. I didn't know I was signing up to be their unpaid caterer for years, trading my dreams for their applause, only to end up feeling like a hollowed-out shell. That first Christmas, I went all out. I spent weeks researching recipes, sketching table settings, dreaming up a menu that would make them see me as more than just Mike's wife. The kitchen smelled like heaven, roasted garlic, thyme, and the sweet tang of pumpkin soup simmering on the stove. I'd hauled in bags of groceries, my credit card screaming from the cost of organic butter and prime rib. I was up at dawn, my hands sticky with dough as I shaped dinner rolls, my heart racing with this naive hope that I'd win them over. When the Thompsons sat down, their faces lit up. Karen, Mike's mom, clasped her hands and called me a gift from above. Mike's eyes sparkled with pride, and even Bill, who barely speaks, grunted. "Best meal I've had in years." Jessica, the sister who always looks like she stepped out of a fashion magazine, actually asked for my stuffing recipe. For one shining moment, I felt like I belonged, like I'd carved out a place in their world. But that moment was a trap. It set a standard I could never escape. By the second Christmas, the glow had faded, but the expectations hadn't. Karen started calling in November with suggestions that felt like orders. "Sarah, everyone loved your pecan pie last year. You'll do it again, right?" Jessica added her own demands. "Can you make something lighter this time? Ryan's watching his carbs." I'd nod, smile, and bury myself in cookbooks, trying to outdo myself. I wasn't just cooking, I was performing, chasing that high of their approval. But the praise got thinner, the demands got heavier, and I started to feel like a machine, not a person. By year 3, I was spending my weekends testing recipes, blowing my paycheck on artisanal cheeses and grass-fed beef, and missing deadlines at my ad agency job. My boss raised an eyebrow when I turned in a pitch late, muttering, "Sarah, you're slipping." Slipping? I was fucking drowning. Last Christmas was the kicker. I'd been up till 3 a.m., my kitchen a battlefield of flour and sugar as I rolled out dough for pecan pies. My apartment smelled like a bakery, but it wasn't cozy. It was chaos. My eyes burned from lack of sleep, my fingers ached from chopping, and my bank account was crying from the $200 I'd dropped on ingredients. I dragged myself to the Thompsons' house, arms full of baking trays, only to overhear Jessica whispering to Ryan in the dining room, "Sarah's food is fine, but it's a bit much for Christmas, don't you think?" Much. That bitch ate 2 heaping plates of my too much food. I stood there, clutching a spatula, my stomach twisting. Fine. I'd poured my soul into that meal, and all I got was a half-assed jab. Karen didn't even look up from her wine glass to say thanks. Bill just patted his stomach and wandered off. Mike gave me a quick hug, but it felt hollow, like he didn't see the toll it was taking. Looking back, I can see how I let it happen. I was so desperate to be loved, to be enough for this family that seemed so perfect on the surface. I thought if I cooked harder, planned better, made the table prettier, they'd see me, really see me. But they didn't. They saw the food, the decorations, the perfect holiday I created, but not me. I was invisible, reduced to a function, like a hired chef who just happened to be married to their son. Every compliment on the food felt like a knife, because it wasn't about me, it was about what I provided. I'd lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling of our tiny Brooklyn apartment, wondering when I'd lost myself. Was it the first time I said yes to Karen's suggestions? The second Christmas when I skipped a work event to bake cookies? Or was it every time I swallowed my exhaustion and smiled, pretending it was fine? The worst part wasn't even them, it was me. I hated myself for caring so much, for needing their approval like oxygen. I'd look in the mirror, bags under my eyes, flour still dusted in my hair, and barely recognize the woman staring back. Where was the Sarah who moved to New York with big dreams, who wanted to run her own ad campaigns, who laughed easily and lived loudly? She was buried under a pile of recipes and expectations, fading with every holiday I spent in that goddamn kitchen. I kept telling myself it was love, that I was doing it for Mike, for family. But deep down, I knew I was chasing something I'd never get. Validation from people who didn't even notice I was breaking. That realization burned, hotter than any oven I'd ever slaved over, and it was the first crack in the facade I'd built. I didn't know it yet, but I was already starting to fall, hard. I'm sitting here, sipping cold coffee in my Brooklyn apartment, and I can still feel the weight of this past fall, like a stone lodged in my chest. By October, I was a wreck, teetering on the edge of burnout, but nobody saw it. Not Mike, not the Thompsons, not even me, not really. My job at the ad agency was kicking my ass harder than ever. We'd landed a massive client, a sportswear brand with a budget bigger than my dreams, and I was leading the campaign. 12-hour days were normal, my inbox a war zone of urgent emails, my phone buzzing with client notes at midnight. I'd stumble home, eyes stinging from screen glare, only to find myself sketching out Christmas menus instead of sleeping. The Thompsons' holiday was looming, and I was drowning in their expectations, my own ambition, and a gnawing sense that I was betraying myself with every yes I gave them. It started with Karen's texts, right on cue in early October. I'd be in a meeting pitching slogans when my phone would light up. "Sarah, we're expecting 20 this Christmas. Can you do that cheesy mashed potato thing again? It's a crowd pleaser." "No, please, no. How are you holding up?" Just demands, like I was their personal chef on speed dial. I'd stare at those messages, my stomach nodding, and type back, "Sure, I'll figure it out." Why? Because I didn't know how to say no without feeling like I was letting everyone down. Mike tried to help, bless his heart, but his version of helping was pathetic. He'd chop half an onion, leave a mess of peels on the counter, and say, "Babe, I'm crushing it," before vanishing to watch the Giants game. I'd grit my teeth, forcing a smile, because I loved him, and I wanted to believe he saw how much this was killing me. The truth is, I was suffocating. My apartment, once my sanctuary, had become a staging ground for the Thompsons' Christmas. My kitchen counter was buried under grocery lists, recipe printouts, and post-it notes with Karen's suggestions. My fridge was stuffed with ingredients I couldn't afford. $30 for a block of aged cheddar, $50 for a prime rib. While my own meals were instant ramen or takeout, I ate standing up. At work, I was slipping. My creative director, Lisa, pulled me aside one day, her voice sharp. "Sarah, your last pitch was rushed. You're better than this." I mumbled an apology, my face burning, but inside I was screaming. Better than this? I was barely surviving. I'd stay up past midnight, testing pie crust recipes after work, my hands trembling from exhaustion. I wasn't creating art for my campaigns anymore. I was creating feasts for people who didn't even say thank you. I tried to speak up, to drop hints that I was crumbling. One night, I called Karen, my voice shaking as I stirred a pot of cranberry sauce I was testing. "This is a lot for me, work's intense, and I'm struggling to keep up." Her response was a cheerful dismissal. "Oh, Sarah, you're so talented. Nobody does Christmas like you." Talented? I felt like a hamster on a wheel, running until I collapsed. I turned to Mike, hoping he'd get it. "Babe, I'm exhausted," I said, slumping on our couch, my laptop still open with a half-finished ad deck. "This Christmas stuff, it's too much." He rubbed my shoulder, his face soft with concern. But then he said, "You love cooking, though, right? And Mom's counting on you." Counting on me. Those words felt like chains, locking me into a role I hadn't chosen. My best friend Rachel was the only one who saw through the bullshit. She came over one evening, finding me surrounded by cookbooks, my hair a mess, my eyes red from lack of sleep. "Jesus, Sarah," she said, tossing her bag on the couch. "You look like hell. Why are you doing this to yourself?" I tried to laugh it off, but my voice cracked. "It's just how it is, They expect it." She shook her head, her eyes fierce. "No, they expect it because you let them. You're killing yourself for people who don't even notice." Her words hit like a slap, but I couldn't argue. Why was I doing this? Was it love? Duty? Or just a desperate need to prove I belonged in this family that always felt one step out of reach? I'd lie awake at night, the city's hum filtering through our window, and replay those early Christmases in my head. The first one, when Karen's praise made me feel like a hero. The second was when I pushed myself harder, thinking I could keep that magic alive. But now, every recipe I planned felt like a surrender. Every grocery run a reminder that I was giving up pieces of myself. I'd walk past my vision board, pinned with ideas for my dream ad campaign, a trip to Paris, a life that felt like mine, and it mocked me. That Sarah was gone, replaced by someone who existed to serve, to please, to disappear into the background of someone else's holiday. I hated how much I cared, how much their approval still mattered. I'd stare at the ceiling, my heart racing, and wonder, when did I become this person? When did I let myself fall so far? The struggle wasn't just the cooking or the exhaustion, it was the war inside me. Part of me wanted to scream, to throw the recipes in the trash, and tell the Thompsons to figure it out themselves. But another part, the part that still craved their love, whispered that if I just tried harder, made the perfect meal, they'd finally see me. That tension tore at me, day after day, until I felt like I was splitting in two. I was fighting to hold on to myself, but I didn't even know who that was anymore. All I knew was that Christmas was coming, and I was barreling toward a breaking point I couldn't yet see. I'm still haunted by the moment it all came crashing down, 2 weeks before Christmas, when the weight of being the Thompsons' invisible chef finally broke me. I'm Sarah, 29, and by then, I was a walking zombie. My life a blur of ad agency deadlines and holiday prep that wasn't even for me. I was sick, fever spiking at 102, throat raw, coughing so hard my ribs ached, but I still dragged myself out of bed at 5 a.m., loaded my car with grocery bags I'd paid for with my own overstretched credit card, and drove to the Thompsons' Long Island house. The air was sharp, the sky a dull gray, and my head pounded like a drum as I pulled up to their picture-perfect colonial home, its porch lights twinkling mockingly. I was there to cook their damn Christmas feast, because that's what I did, right? I was the one who made their holidays magical, even if it was killing me. The kitchen smelled of nothing yet, just cold tile and the faint bleach from their cleaner. I unloaded my bags, $60 worth of organic vegetables, a $75 prime rib, herbs I'd hunted down at a specialty market, my hands shaking as I tried to organize the chaos. Karen greeted me at the door, her eyes flicking over my flushed face. "God, Sarah, you look awful," she said, her tone more annoyed than concerned. "Just don't cough on the food, okay? No, are you okay?" No offer to help. Just a warning, like I was a health hazard instead of her daughter-in-law. I mumbled something about being fine and shuffled to the kitchen, my body screaming for rest, but my brain stuck on autopilot. I had to keep going. I always kept going. The morning was a feverish blur. I chopped onions, my eyes stinging worse than usual, the knife slipping in my sweaty hands. I basted the roast, the oven's heat making my dizziness worse. Every cough rattled my chest, but I pushed through because who else would do this? Jessica called at 8 a.m., her voice chipper. "Sarah, can you whip up a vegan side for Ryan? He's doing plant-based now." No heads up, no apology for the last-minute request. I gritted my teeth, nodding into the phone, and added another dish to my endless list. By noon, the kitchen was a war zone, pots bubbling, counters cluttered with cutting boards. My head spinning so badly I had to grip the counter to stay upright. I was trying to carve the roast, the blade heavy in my hand, when Ryan poked his head in. "These napkins look cheap," he said, gesturing to the table I'd spent an hour setting. "Couldn't you get something classier?" I wanted to scream, to throw the knife at the wall, but I just nodded, my voice gone. Then I saw it, sitting on a side table like a bomb waiting to go off. A photo album, its cover embossed with Thompson family memories. I don't know why I picked it up. Maybe I needed a break. Maybe I was delirious. But I flipped it open and my heart stopped. Page after page of last Christmas, the one before, all their holiday gatherings. The Thompsons beaming around tables I'd set, eating food I'd slaved over. Mike laughing with Jessica, Karen raising a glass, Bill carving a turkey I'd roasted. The cousins posing with their wine, the tree glowing in the background. Every moment was perfect, polished, joyful, and I wasn't in a single one. Not one goddamn photo. I was there, always there, in the kitchen, making it all happen, but I was erased. A ghost, a nobody in their story. My hands shook as I turned the pages, my vision blurring, not just from the fever, but from tears I didn't know I had left. I saw myself in those moments, not in the pictures, but in my memory, sweating over a stove, scrubbing dishes while they laughed, missing every toast, every joke, every memory because I was too busy making theirs. I'd given them everything, my time, my money, my health, my fucking soul, and they didn't even see me. The album slipped from my hands, hitting the counter with a thud. The sound snapped something inside me, like a rope fraying for years finally breaking. I was done. Done being invisible, done being their servant, done sacrificing myself for people who didn't care. I dropped the carving knife, the metal clanging against the cutting board. My coat was on the hook by the door. I grabbed it, my movements jerky, like I was moving through water. Mike was in the living room, setting up the Christmas tree with Bill. "Sarah?" he called, his voice confused as I stormed past. "Where are you going?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat was too tight, my heart too raw. The cold air hit me like a slap as I stepped outside, the snow crunching under my boots. I got in my car, hands trembling on the wheel, and just sat there for a moment, the engine humming. I wasn't just leaving the kitchen. I was leaving the version of myself I'd let them create. The Sarah who said yes to everything, who lived for their approval, who disappeared so they could shine. She was gone. I didn't know what came next, but as I pulled out of their driveway, the Thompsons' perfect house shrinking in my rearview mirror, I felt something new. A spark of defiance, burning hotter than my fever. For the first time in years, I was choosing me. I'm Sarah, 29, and the moment I walked out of the Thompsons' kitchen, something inside me shifted, like a dam breaking after years of cracks. I was done being their invisible chef, done pouring my soul into their Christmas, while they posed for pictures I'd never be in. My fever was raging, my head spinning, but as I slammed the car door and peeled out of their Long Island driveway, I felt alive for the first time in months. The snow was falling hard, thick flakes blurring my windshield, but I didn't care. I wasn't going home to our cramped Brooklyn apartment to stew in my exhaustion. Instead, I opened my phone, booked a last-minute Airbnb in a tiny coastal town in Maine, and hit the gas. 4 hours through a blizzard, my heart pounding, my cough rattling my chest. I was running toward something, not just away. The drive was a haze, the road a tunnel of white. My phone buzzed relentlessly on the passenger seat. Mike, Karen, even Jessica, but I didn't look. I turned it off, tossed it into the glove compartment, and let the silence wrap around me like a blanket. For once, I wasn't answering to anyone. No client emails, no Thompson demands, just me and the open road. By the time I reached the Maine coast, the storm had eased, and the town was a postcard of quiet. Salt-weathered houses, a lighthouse blinking in the distance, the ocean a dark, restless expanse under a starless sky. My Airbnb was a creaky wooden cabin perched on a cliff, the kind of place that smelled of pine and old books, with a fireplace that crackled like it was whispering secrets. I dropped my bag, collapsed onto a sagging couch, and felt my body unclench, like I'd been holding my breath for years. For the first time in forever, I wasn't planning, cooking, or pleasing anyone. I woke up the next morning, Christmas Eve, to the sound of waves crashing and seagulls crying, not an alarm clock or Karen's voice in my head. My fever was still there, but I felt lighter. I bundled up in a borrowed wool blanket and walked to the beach, the cold air stinging my cheeks. The ocean was wild, gray waves slamming against jagged rocks, and I stood there, letting the wind whip my hair, feeling like I was part of something bigger than the Thompsons' dining room. I didn't have to be perfect. I didn't have to be anything. I was just Sarah, and that was enough. I spent the day doing things I hadn't done in years. I sat by the fire, sketching ideas for my ad campaign on a napkin, the kind of creative spark I used to live for before the Thompsons' expectations snuffed it out. I read a dog-eared romance novel I found on the cabin's shelf, laughing at its cheesy lines, letting myself feel silly and free. I walked to a nearby diner, a hole in the wall with flickering neon signs, and ordered a lobster roll, the bread warm and buttery, the meat sweet and briny. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, not rushing to serve anyone else. It was just me, a cracked vinyl booth, and a waitress who called me Han and refilled my coffee without asking. I felt human again, not a machine churning out holiday miracles. Christmas morning was even better. I woke up late, no 4 a.m. alarm to start roasting a turkey. The cabin's windows framed a sunrise that painted the sky in pinks and golds, the ocean glittering like it was showing off. I made instant coffee in a chipped mug and sat on the porch, wrapped in that same blanket, watching the world wake up. I thought about the Thompsons, probably scrambling to figure out their holiday without me. Part of me felt a pang of guilt. Mike's worried face flashed in my mind, but it was drowned out by a fierce, burning satisfaction. Let them struggle. Let them see what it's like without their free chef. I wasn't here to gloat, though. I was here to find myself, to remember what it felt like to exist for me, not them. I didn't check my phone until late that afternoon, mostly out of curiosity. When I turned it on, the screen lit up with a flood of notifications, missed calls, voicemails, texts piling up like a digital avalanche. Mike's messages were frantic. "Sarah, where are you? Mom's losing it. The turkey's still frozen." Karen's voicemails dripped with panic. "Sarah, this isn't like you. We're family. How could you leave us like this?" Jessica's texts were pure venom. "Nice job ruining Christmas with your little stunt. Hope you're happy." I laughed out loud, the sound echoing in the quiet cabin. Happy? Yeah, I was getting there. They were freaking out because their holiday machine had shut down, and for once, I didn't feel obligated to fix it. I sent a single text to Mike. "I'm safe. I need this. Merry Christmas." Then I turned the phone off again, the silence sweeter than any dessert I'd ever baked. That night, I lit the fireplace, the flames dancing like they were celebrating with me. I wasn't just rebelling against the Thompsons. I was rebelling against the version of myself I'd let them create. The one who said yes to everything, who thought her worth was tied to their approval. I sat there, the glow warming my face, and felt a spark of something new, power. Not the kind that comes from pleasing others, but the kind that comes from choosing yourself. I didn't know what would happen when I went back, but I knew I'd never be their ghost again. For the first time in years, I was free, and that freedom tasted better than any Christmas feast I'd ever made. I'm Sarah, 29, and coming back from that Maine escape after Christmas felt like stepping off a quiet island into a storm. My rebellion, ditching the Thompsons' holiday feast for a cabin by the sea, had left me lighter, like I'd shed a skin I didn't know I was wearing. But as I drove back to Brooklyn, the city skyline looming through the windshield, I knew I'd have to face the fallout. The Thompsons weren't just going to let me walk away from their expectations without a fight. My phone, silent for days, was a ticking bomb of missed calls and texts, and I could feel the weight of their judgment waiting for me. I wasn't the same Sarah who'd left, though. That spark of defiance I'd found in Maine was still burning, and I was ready to face them, not as their invisible chef, but as someone who finally saw her own worth. I got home late, the apartment dark except for the glow of streetlights filtering through the blinds. Mike was waiting up, slouched on the couch, his face a mix of worry and frustration. "Sarah, where the hell were you?" he said, his voice sharp but cracking at the edges. I set my bag down, my body still heavy with the remnants of my fever, and looked at him. "I needed to get away," I said simply, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. "I couldn't do it anymore, Mike. Not Christmas, not the cooking, not being invisible." His eyes widened, like he was seeing me for the first time. He started to argue, to defend his family, but then he stopped, his shoulders sagging. It was a disaster, he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "We tried to cook the turkey. It was raw in the middle. We ended up ordering pizza. Mom was in tears, Dad was pissed, and Jessica, she's furious." I nodded, picturing the chaos, Karen fumbling with a half-frozen turkey, Bill grumbling over a slice of pepperoni, Jessica probably ranting about how I'd ruined their tradition. Part of me wanted to laugh, but another part felt a pang of guilt, sharp and fleeting. I pushed it down. "Good," I said, surprising myself with how cold it sounded. "Maybe now they'll see what I've been carrying." Mike looked at me, his mouth opening like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. Instead, he said, "I didn't realize how much you were doing, Sarah. I should have helped more. I'm sorry." His apology was raw, clumsy, but real. It wasn't enough, not yet, but it was a start, a crack in the wall I'd been slamming against for years. The next day, Karen called, her voice tight with urgency. "Sarah, we need to talk." Can you meet me for coffee? I agreed. Not because I owed her anything, but because I needed to say my piece. We met at a small cafe near my apartment, the kind with mismatched chairs and the smell of burnt espresso. Karen looked older than I remembered, her eyes shadowed, her usual polished demeanor frayed. She stirred her latte, avoiding my gaze. Christmas was a mess, she said, finally, her voice low. The food was awful, the cousins were complaining, and I didn't know how to fix it. She looked up, her eyes searching mine. Why did you leave us like that, Sarah? We're family. I took a deep breath, my hands wrapped around my coffee mug, its warmth grounding me. Because I wasn't part of your family, Karen, I said, my voice shaking but firm. For 3 years, I've been your chef, your maid, your planner, but not your daughter-in-law. I've spent every holiday in the kitchen, missing every moment you all shared. I'm not in your photos, your stories, your memories. I'm not there because you didn't see me. Her face crumpled, like I'd slapped her, but I kept going. I spent hundreds of dollars, weeks of my time, my health, my energy, and you all acted like it was nothing, like it was my job. I can't do it anymore. The words poured out, each one a release, like I was shedding years of resentment. Karen's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't argue. I didn't realize, she said softly, her voice breaking. You made it look so easy, Sarah. I thought you loved it. I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed in the quiet cafe. I loved cooking once, but not like this, not when it meant disappearing. She nodded, wiping her eyes, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of understanding. I took you for granted, she admitted. We all did. I'm sorry. It wasn't perfect, but it was something, a crack in the Thompson armor I'd never seen before. Jessica was harder. She texted me later, her words dripping with venom. Nice move, Sarah. Really classy, bailing on us. Hope you enjoyed your little vacation. I didn't respond, but when we crossed paths at a family brunch a week later, she cornered me in the hallway. Her arms crossed, her lips pursed. You made Mom cry, she said, like that was the crime of the century. You think you're too good for us now? I looked her in the eye, my heart pounding but my voice steady. No, Jessica. I just think I'm worth more than being your servant. She blinked, caught off guard, and muttered a half-assed, Whatever, I guess you were tired. It wasn't an apology, but it was as close as she'd get. We agreed the next family gathering would be a potluck. Everyone had to contribute, no exceptions. I wasn't holding my breath for miracles, but the conversation had shifted. They were starting to see me, not just the meals I made. Sitting in that cafe with Karen, standing up to Jessica, hearing Mike's apology. It wasn't a full victory, but it was a reckoning. I'd forced them to face the void I'd left, and in doing so, I'd found a piece of myself I thought was gone. For the first time, I felt like I could stand my ground without crumbling, and that felt like power. I'm Sarah, 29, and if you'd told me a year ago I'd be sitting at a Thompson family gathering, laughing, eating, and actually in the damn family photo, I'd have called you crazy. After my Christmas rebellion, walking out on their holiday feast and escaping to that Maine cabin, I came back changed, carrying a new kind of strength I didn't know I had. The Thompsons had faced the chaos of my absence, and I'd forced them to see me, not just the meals I slaved over. By the time Easter rolled around, I wasn't the same woman who had spent years fading into their kitchen. I'd learned to say no, to demand my place, and that shift led to a victory I'm still savoring. One that's about more than just a holiday. It's about reclaiming myself. Easter was the test. I'd agreed to join the Thompsons at their Long Island house, but this time I wasn't their chef. I brought one dish, a German potato salad, tangy with mustard and bacon, something I loved making for myself, not for their approval. No prime rib, no pies, no weeks of planning that drained my soul. I walked in with a single bowl, my chin up, and set it on the counter without a word. The house smelled different, not of my usual marathon cooking, but of Karen's slightly burnt roast and a faint whiff of store-bought rolls. The dining room was less polished, The tablecloths a little wrinkled, but it felt real, like a family figuring things out. Not a staged holiday catalog. Karen was in the kitchen, apron tied crookedly, her face flushed as she wrestled with a leg of lamb. "Sarah, good to see you," she said, her smile tight but genuine. "I hope this roast turns out okay." I nodded, offering a quick, "It smells great," and meant it. She was trying, and that was new. Mike was there too, mashing potatoes with a determination that was almost comical, lumps and all. "I'm getting the hang of this," he grinned, holding up a bowl of uneven mash like it was a trophy. I laughed, the sound lighter than I expected. Jessica and Ryan arrived late, as usual, with a store-bought key lime pie that looks like it had been grabbed in a rush. "It's from that bakery you like," Jessica said, her tone defensive, like she was daring me to judge. I didn't. I just shrugged and said, "Looks good." For once, I wasn't here to fix their mess or outdo myself. I was just here. Dinner was a far cry from the polished feasts I used to orchestrate. The lamb was a bit tough, the mashed potatoes had a gritty texture, and the pie was overly sweet. The crust soggy. But nobody complained, not even Ryan, who usually had a snarky comment ready. We sat around the table, the spring sun streaming through the windows, casting a warm glow on the mismatched plates. Conversation flowed, halting at first, then easier. Mike told a story about a work mishap that had us laughing, even Bill, who usually just grunted. Karen asked me about my ad campaign, her eyes attentive, like she actually cared about my answer. Jessica stayed quiet, but she didn't roll her eyes or check her phone once, a small miracle. I ate slowly, savoring the taste of my own salad, the one thing on the table that felt like me, and realized I was part of this moment, not just its architect. The real triumph came after dessert, when Jessica pulled out her phone for the obligatory family photo. In the past, I'd have been in the kitchen, scrubbing pans or plating leftovers, while they posed without me. Not this time. "Sarah, get in here," Mike called, waving me over. I hesitated, my heart catching. Old habits die hard. But then I walked over, standing right in the center. Karen put an arm around me, her touch warm, and Mike squeezed my hand. Jessica snapped the picture, and when she showed it to us, there I was, front and center, my smile real, not strained. My eyes bright with something I hadn't felt in years, presence. I wasn't on the edges, not cropped out, not a ghost. I was there, fully, undeniably me. As we cleared the table together, everyone pitching in, even Ryan, who grudgingly carried plates to the sink, Karen pulled me aside. The kitchen was quieter now, the clatter of dishes fading. "This was better," she said, her voice soft, almost shy. "Everyone helping, everyone here. I wish we'd done it like this sooner." Her words hit me hard, not because they erased the years of being taken for granted, but because they showed she was starting to get it. "Me too," I said, meeting her eyes. "But I'm glad we're here now." She hugged me, a quick, awkward embrace, and I felt a weight lift. Not all of it, but enough. Looking back, I know the Thompsons aren't perfect. They'll still be a pain in the ass sometimes, still forget to say thank you, still slip into old habits. But I'm different now. I've learned my worth isn't tied to what I do for them. It's in who I am. That main escape, that moment of walking away, gave me the courage to demand my place, not just at their table, but in my own life. If you've ever felt like you're disappearing under someone else's expectations, let me tell you, you're stronger than you know. Walk away when you need to. Say no, even if it shakes things up. You'll find your power, even when the people you love let you down. And when you do, when you stand tall in your own story, that's a triumph worth celebrating. So, there you have it. My story of breaking free from being the Thompsons' invisible chef and finding my place at the table. If any of this hits home, if you've ever felt like you're fading under someone else's expectations, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment. Share your own journey, what's made you say enough, and take back your power. Thanks for listening to me pour my heart out. It means the world. Let's catch up again soon. Here's to owning our stories and celebrating our triumphs. See you next time.